Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
So, how did I pick my fantasy players when I won our league?
you pick them based off how happy they looked in their profile picture.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, that was really all I wanted to talk about. You guys can have fun now. Have fun on your trip.
Okay, I love you. Talk back afterwards.
Okay, I love you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Should not play me down.
Okay, so I wanted to make this video today mainly because I had time to do my makeup. No, that's not true. Mainly because my brother called me and informed me that preseason in football was starting, and I felt like this might be able to help some people. I love fantasy sports. I'm not afraid to admit that. I think there are going to be a lot of people watching this video being like, oh, she's a girl, and she's telling us how to win our fantasy league. And to that I say, I paid my rent with fantasy money one year. So yeah, gender bias in sports. It's exciting. I wanted to give you guys a few tips and tricks. The two fantasy leagues that I mainly participate in are football and surfing, which surprises a lot of people. I think a lot of people didn't even know that there was a surfing fantasy league. There is. It's big and really fun, and I highly recommend it. But basically, I think those two encapsulate what I want to talk about in both like team fantasy sports as well as individually fantasy sports, and kind of how picking for both can really affect your year in fantasy. Without further ado, I'm going to give you a couple rules that I have of how to win your fantasy league. First one I have is don't show allegiance. This sounds really weird, but I think one of the best parts about me coming into fantasy with no knowledge originally when I started a couple of years ago was I had no allegiance to any team. I've said it in videos before, my entire family is Green Bay Packers fans. I am like a half-hearted Colts fan. I don't have a team that I grew up cheering for. My mother's a huge Cubs fan. My dad really likes the Indianapolis Pacers. So we're kind of all over the book, and I'm not from a place that I feel particularly connected to. I moved all around the Midwest when I was younger, so there was no passing down of eras and eras of being a Caps fan. Like, no, I had to find them on my own. I'm a fan of them because I like them. And I think that's a really fun way to be a fan, and you don't have to like have been indoctrinated into this like dynasty of fandom by your family. You don't have to. You can be a fan of whoever the fuck you want. So I think that really helped me originally, especially in teams. The reason I got started in fantasy is because I have a twin brother, and he didn't have enough players for his fantasy league and was like, hey, you work in sports, you like sports, just do it. Like, just for my sake, I think it was like a $30 buy-in. Like, please just give me $30, let's do this. I ended up winning the league my first year, and to show you how much allegiance matters, I called my brother and asked him how I picked the players that won me that league. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
So how did I pick my fantasy players when I won our league?
you pick them based off how happy they looked in their profile picture.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, as you see, it doesn't matter who you root for. My brother has picked the Green Bay Packers defense for quite a few years. Some years it's been really great for him, and some years it has absolutely not. When I say don't have allegiance, I'm saying don't be superstitious. Pick the players that you think are going to do well, not players that you necessarily like. This also goes for individual sports. Surfing is very unique in the fact that you pick around 9 to 12 people per event, and then how they do individually creates your final score and how you do. So obviously you want to pick the winner of the event. You want to pick the people who are going to get as far as possible, but you will never be able to pick, the most perfect lineup every single time. So what I found is that if you don't hold allegiance to one player or to one team, you will overall have a better idea of what's going on. So to put a perfect example, I have a favorite surfer. His name is Leonardo Fioravanti. He was on tour 2 years ago or a year ago. I get my years mixed up. It's fine. He had done really well in the minors, which is the WQS in surfing World Qualifying Series. Top of the leaderboard, getting to get onto tour, and tour takes, I think it's 32 or 34 people. And so he had been slated to do really well. So of course I put him in really high. My first event, I wanted him to do well. I love his surfing. I really love watching him. And he did not have the season that anyone would have predicted. And my issue was I was getting so superstitious about putting him in and being like, I just want him to do well, I just want him to do well. I'd put him in my lineup every time, and it was suffering because of that, because he would never deliver what I wanted him to. And then when I wouldn't put him in, he would. So I was getting too far into my head about fantasy statistics. And that comes to my second rule, which is statistics are your friend. This goes really hand in hand with don't pledge allegiance to a player or a team. It works even better in team sports. I like having a good quarterback. I like Andrew Luck usually if he's not injured. But even with Tom Brady can have a bad day. So you need to watch your statistics and say, okay, this person's not slated to do well this weekend. So instead of saying, I'm going to stay with the guy that I like, you need to say, I'm going to stay with the guy who is predicted to do well. It does kind of depend on your draft, though. With surfing, you can pretty much take any player. Like, you don't have to put it on a waiver wire. You pick your own lineup every single event. And I believe it's the same with golf, but I could be wrong, and I'm sure somebody's going to correct me later. So in that, it's a lot better if you choose people who have proven history at these events, you know. If they're good in head-high waves, and it's going to be head-high waves this weekend, put them in. You know, don't trade them out for somebody who's good in tubes. Similarly for golf, if it's a course that requires a lot of short game, put in somebody who's good at a fucking short game. Moving on for team sports like hockey, you know, choose Austin Matthews, even if you don't like him. Choose John Tavares, even if you don't like him, because odds are they're going to show up better than somebody like William Karlsson of the Vegas Golden Knights, who does really well, but at the end of the day, just looks good. Look at the numbers. Football's especially good for this. They will usually put things in order of like how many points that player is predicted to get that weekend. Don't be afraid to make trades. I know a lot of people who are very superstitious about this. I'm a superstitious person too, you guys. Like, you know, I have to check my oven 3 times to make sure it's turned off, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily superstition or OCD. It's probably a mix of both. You need to be able to let go of players. It's kind of like hoarding. You don't want to hoard your players. Like, you don't want to show up and have the police come in and be like, where are your 6 cats? And you be like, well, I'm a hoarder, and they're under both Le'Veon Bell and Odell Beckham Jr. With statistics comes my next rule, which is always stay on top of things. If you are super invested in fantasy and you want to spend a lot of time with it, this is the day and age to do it. I mean, you have social media at your fingertips. One of the most important things that I have learned is that if you check somebody's social media before you pick them, you can kind of tell what mood they're in about the place that they're about to play in, surf, the team that they're going up against, how much they've been training. Another thing is life events. People don't take this into account that, like, if somebody has a baby and then they go to their next event, they're probably going to be pretty happy. They're probably going to be on cloud 9 because they've been having a baby. Like, people's personalities and souls and how they're feeling aren't usually taken into account with sports. And I think they should be more, especially for fantasy, because you're allowed, like, that information's public. You can see how that person's doing, how they're feeling about going up into this next weekend. And from there, I say, you know, pick players who are consistent, pick players who don't get emotionally hot and cold, because you're gonna get better results. It's basic math, essentially. Like, do you want somebody who stays consistent and brings in good scores every single week, or do you want somebody who can bring in the best score, but then also put you in the negatives? No, you want, like, it's just like running a business or whatever. You want to stay afloat. And that kind of brings me to my final rule of you can never predict what's exactly going to happen. You just can't. Fantasy is ridiculous. It's amazing and it's super duper fun, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. And even if you are statistically minded like I am and go for the numbers and, you know, just make sure you do everything right and you're checking up on players and you're seeing what they're doing, make sure you never make stupid mistakes like putting a player in on their bye week. That's unhelpful to everyone involved. It's kind of bad etiquette too. It's just like, put in effort and you'll have good results. But at the end of the day, if you're not winning every league, that's fine, because there is still an element of luck in it. It's just about doing your best, trying your hardest, and having a shit ton of fun. Yeah, I hope this helps. I know this is going to be kind of a short video just because I wanted it to be. If you guys have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. I would love to hear them. Hockey season starts soon, so I will be doing recaps for that, but if there's another sport you'd like me to do recaps for, I'd love to. So yeah, that's all I got. Bye bye.
Don't overthink it. Just finish up your drink.